All right, good evening to everyone. We're going to go ahead and get our meeting started. Roll call, please. Ms. Lang.
Ms. Miller. Ms. Parker.
Here.
Ms. Reed.
Here.
Ms. Schooley.
Here.
Dr. Varda.
Here.
Great. I would like to thank our live simultaneous Spanish interpreters for joining us tonight. We live stream our meetings, and that link can be found on the district's website. Please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Tollison, I have a quick question for you. I'm not stalling, I promise. I seriously have a question. I don't like to do things wrong in public. Before we approve the agenda, we have some items that we know a director would like to have removed, and that director's not here. Would it be okay if the motion was made by Director Reed?
Even easier than that. The removals are from the consent agenda.
So we don't even
you
need.
can still approve the general meeting agenda for tonight and then address that when you get to the consent agenda.
Perfect. I'm a rule follower is what this comes down to. I like following rules. All right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
I move to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the board meeting January 20th, 2023 is the date. January 9th. I'm like, that is not February. I don't even know what month I'm in. February 9th is presented. Roll call, please, Ms. Lang.
Ms. Miller. Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Reed.
Yes.
Ms. Schooley.
Yes.
Dr. Varda.
Yes.
All right. The agenda is approved. So we're moving on to honors, recognitions, and proclamations. Every month, the Board of Education has the distinct pleasure of recognizing students, staff, community members, and schools for their achievements and contributions to our community. Additionally, the board publicly recognizes special events and significant issues by issuing proclamations. In the month of February, we are commemorating Black History Month, National School Counseling Week, Career and Technical Education Month, National School Resource Officer Appreciation Day, School Driver Appreciation Day, and National Public Schools Week. We encourage you to read the Jeffco School Board's proclamations, which can be found in full on board docs. And now, my favorite part, we get to move into honors and recognitions. So I'm going to hand it over to Director Reed for our first recognition of this evening.
Okay. So the Board of Education is pleased to recognize and honor the Jeffco Pregnancy and Parenting Program. For the first celebration of the evening, the Board of Education is pleased to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Jeffco's Adolescent Pregnancy and Parenting Program, JCAP, located at the McLean Community High School. Could the program's staff, including Katie Waske, Coordinator and Parenting Educator Holly Davidson, Child Care Director, and Sarah Killian, school-based registered nurse, please make your way to the front of the room to receive the Jeffco Thrives Award. All right. Jeffco's Adolescent Pregnancy and Parenting Program opened 2 small cottages located in Arvada in 1972, and in 2000, the program relocated to McLean High School. Throughout the past 50 years, Jeffco's Adolescent Pregnancy and Parenting Program has pursued its mission of providing a comprehensive program to support and empower young parents. Jeffco's Adolescent Pregnancy and Parenting Program provides the young parents it serves with wraparound support as they learn parenting skills and work to graduate high school. The program focuses on 3 levels of support for students: parenting and child development education, quality learning, early learning center program, family health and wellness education, and advocacy. The program offers a 4 to 8 week maternity-paternity leave for students to adjust to parenthood, and a modified school day allows parents to spend time with their babies or work after school. On average, Jeffco's adolescent pregnancy and parenting program serves between 12 and 20 students each year. Please join us in recognition and appreciation of Jeffco's adolescent pregnancy and parenting program for 50 years supporting young parents and their babies in Jeffco.
Thank you for your work. I have the pleasure of handing out the next recognition for Our People, Our Strength. The Board of Education is pleased to acknowledge the work accomplished by Kara Zwerkowski, Compass Montessori's Gender Sexuality Alliance's leader, for organizing Jeffco's first GSA Summit. Kara, would you please make your way to the front of the room to receive the Our People, Our Strength recognition? Thanks. All right, now I get to talk about you. Yep. The summit is designed to bring high school students and GSA organizations and their individual schools together to learn, build community, and use their student voice. The inaugural Jeffco Gender Sexuality Alliance's event took place in December and provided an opportunity for student connection and celebration of LGBTQ+ diversity in our community. The event was held here at the Ed Center with activities including artivism with Rainbow Alley, discussions on intersectionality with Children's Hospital True Center, the LGBTQ+ youth experience in Jeffco, and guest speaker Styler Ells, owner and operator of the first openly queer gym in Denver. Kara partnered with Jeffco's family, schools, and community partnerships and student success teams on how to best support students participating in GSAs. As a result, hosting the local summit became a district priority. Kara partnered with these district teams, the Compass Montessori GSA group, and students to help in preparing for this event. Kara gave her time and energy making the summit happen with aligned intention, focused planning, and creativity. This event embodies Jeffco's value of belonging, cultivating environments where all students, staff, families, and members of our community are safe, accepted, respected, included, encouraged by others, and feel that their voices and perspectives are valued. Congratulations to Kara and all of the staff, students, and community partners who made this inclusive summit possible. Yeah. All right. For the next recognition, we'll turn it over to Director Varda.
Oops, sorry. Okay, for the final celebration of the evening, the Board of Education is pleased to acknowledge the work accomplished by the Arvada Elks Lodge for our communities, our legacy recognition. This local Elks chapter supported over 100 Jeffco families this past holiday season with King Soopers gift cards. Could Dave Sorensen, the leading knight and charity chairman, please join us in the front of the room to receive this award on behalf of the Arvada Elks Lodge?
You can all come up if you'd like. There's plenty of room at the front.
Okay. The Elks Lodge is a national fraternal order that was founded to promote and practice the 4 cardinal virtues of charity, justice, brotherly love, and fidelity. The local Arvada Elks Lodge was chartered in 1963 and is the largest chapter in Colorado with over 1,000 members. They organize many different community-minded programs where members lead fundraising efforts to support local veterans, youth, community charities, and the Elks National Foundation. Since 1964, the Arvada Elks Lodge has provided local families with a Christmas basket that included food items for the holidays. This year, the Christmas Basket Committee teamed up with Hope Connection and Community and student family liaisons at local Jeffco schools and determined that food gift cards would best meet families' needs. 140 gift cards were distributed this past holiday season to 140 local Jeffco families in 14 schools. Please join us in celebrating Dave Sorensen and the officers and members of the Arvada Elks Lodge, including members of Team Jeffco, for their hours of service committed to our Jeffco community. We're grateful to the Arvada Elks Lodge for contributing to the health and well-being of our students and their families and providing them with resources to support their health, safety, and stability.
And for our final recognition of the evening, I'll turn it over to Director Miller.
Yes, good evening. We are here for our Learners, Our Future with Eloise Sadler from Meiklejohn Elementary School. For our next celebration this evening, the Board of Education is pleased to recognize Eloise for winning a sustainability contest through Propane Education and Research Council of Our Learners, Our Future recognition. Could Eloise please come to the front of the boardroom?
Oh my goodness.
Awesome. We're going to talk about you just for a little bit. The contest, hosted by the Propane Education and Research Council, PERC, asked students to answer the question, what sustainable solutions do you want to see at your school? It was part of PERC's Be Like Jack sustainability contest, inspired by Jack Kendrick, a middle school student from South Carolina that successfully petitioned his school district to purchase the state's first propane-powered special needs school bus. The contest was developed to promote environmentally friendly practices at schools. A winner was selected from various age groups and earned a $2,000 donation to their school to put towards a sustainability project of their choice. Eloise, a fourth grade student at Meiklejohn, won for her idea about planting more trees at school. Her submission was selected as a grand prize winner, which gave her the opportunity to meet the space gal, Emily Calandrelli. Did I say that correctly? Oh, awesome. During a special day of science event at her school. Emily is an MIT engineer turned Emmy-nominated science TV host and co-executive producer of Emily's Wonder Lab on Netflix. How cool is that? Emily visited Meiklejohn in November to present Eloise with the $2,000 donation check for her sustainability project. That's exciting. She led a fun and educational school assembly for students discussing sustainability and science. Let's give a huge round of applause for Eloise for her thoughtful idea and commitment to making the earth a better place. We are so proud of your accomplishment. Woo!
Great job, Eloise. Nice work. All right, with that, we will be moving on to public comment. This is an opportunity for the community to share their thoughts with the board. The board will listen to concerns on any topic for up to 1 hour. If more time is required, we will have a second public comment at the end of the meeting. Individuals have 3 minutes for their public comments. If there are 4 or more people who sign up to address the board, they will have 10 minutes for that group's views to be presented. So with that, we will turn it over to whoever is first up to speak. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Crystal. My son is currently a 3-year-old at Elk Creek Elementary School in Pine. He currently attends afternoon half-day preschool class. My son has gained so much knowledge and improved his speech by attending. The teachers there are absolutely amazing. The half-day program is a perfect balance of family and school for 3 and 4-year-olds. Last year, Governor Jared Polis signed into law that 4-year-olds starting in the 23-24 school year will have access to free preschool, at least 10 hours a week. This program is called Universal Preschool, known as UPK. This program is designed to provide funding so all Colorado families can equitably and affordably access part-time preschool. Governor Polis on the colorado.gov website stated, "We are taking another bold step in ensuring Colorado kids have access to free preschool." Jeffco has recently taken away that perfect balance for these young students in the mountain communities. Jeffco School District has irrationally decided to only offer full-time 5 days a week preschool in the mountain elementary schools such as Elk Creek, West Jeff, and Bergen Meadow. Starting this fall, Jeffco states they will not provide equitable access to free half-day preschool in our mountain community. They are only providing discounted school in which families will still be required to pay about $500 per month. This is creating a division amongst families that can and cannot afford it, which is discrimination. We deserve equitable and affordable access, 10 to 15 hours a week. Half-day preschool just like the schools in the metro area. We already have very limited access to preschool in the mountains. Jeffco has recently closed many schools already and are now cutting preschool accessibility to a select few. In turn, will cause kids to start kindergarten behind and overall lower test scores. We are fighting for our preschools to provide families the option of half-day preschool in the mountain community. Starting this fall, kids on IEPs will still have the option for half-day. They are able to come or leave around the full-day classes nap time. Kids not on IEPs deserve the same equitable opportunity. More families will be inclined to enroll their 4-year-old in half-day programs because it won't cost them anything out of pocket, which is a huge savings. We almost didn't enroll our 3-year-old in preschool because of the high cost for public school, in which our insanely high taxes already go to. If only full-day pre-K option continues to go into effect, enrollment will decrease because families won't be able to afford full-day preschool and will refuse to send their kids full-day. If the board, early learning directors, and superintendent doesn't overturn their ruling to only have full-day preschool available and not provide equitable access to half-day pre-K in the mountain communities, we will escalate our concern to Governor Polis and every government official who signed that bill. Jeffco Early Learning Superintendent and everyone involved in this decision obviously only sees my child and the 3 and 4-year-olds in our community as dollar signs and not humans, which they should be ashamed of. Jeffco School District requires staff to take a 3-hour class about equality, but then you aren't equitable to us because it doesn't suit your pockets. Practice what you preach. I bet every parent in this room would take back anything, spend more time with their kids when they're little. Kids are only little ones. Don't make us decide between preparing these kids for kindergarten and quality family time.
Thank you. Welcome.
You guys added a box for the short people, right? All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brooke Williams, and I am an educator, Jeffco parent, and the current president of JCA. I represent over 5,000 educators in Jeffco working tirelessly to give our students the best public education experiences and a better future. I want to talk to you tonight about some of the work JCA is doing to ensure that our community and the schools that educate it remain strong. This year, we are fortunate to be awarded an NEA Read Across America grant. I have emailed you our flyers to help spread the word to the schools in your areas. Those funds, managed by JCEA, are being used to distribute free books to schools across Jeffco. It has never been more important to ensure our kids have access to books and resources that can feed their growing appetite for knowledge while encouraging their creativity. JCA is proud to play a part in that process. This grant will also provide 2 professional development opportunities and 2 professional development courses to gain Adams State graduate credit and recertification credit through CEA Copilot for our Jeffco educators. Additionally, our Grub Club continues to operate as a resource for students who are food insecure. We all know that our foundation of a healthy education is a healthy student body, and just as our educators go above and beyond for their students in their classrooms, we want to go above and beyond for those students outside of our classroom. Education does not stop at the school door, and our community outreach team has worked tirelessly to ensure children show up to school healthy, fed, and ready to learn. Make sure to check out your flyers in your teacher's lounge and to learn what Grub Club, and I left you guys some last week, what Grub Club is looking for your schools, so we can continue this important work. Finally, I'm excited to announce that JCA is beginning a new partnership with Frontline Farming, whose healthy food and sustainable farming initiatives will allow our outreach to become even more integrated into our local community by sourcing more of our food donations locally. I want to thank Joshua Wise for helping me set that up. JCA remains committed to Jeffco students, community, and its educators. Our schools are the bedrock of our community, and our students and our educators are the most important investment we have. Thank you for your time. And I also wanted to leave you guys with some Valentines that we left our legislators this afternoon, talking about the budget stabilization factor. I promise I have other clothes. You saw me wearing the same shirt last week. So that's what I was doing today, was lobbying for more funding for our schools. So thanks.
Thank you.
Should I just give this to?
Yeah, Jody there. Thank you. Welcome. If you don't mind just introducing yourselves, and then you can begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kaylee Batley, and I am the PTA secretary at Stober. I have been for 3 years. I have 2 wonderful little boys who are 7 and 10, and we've been at Stober for 5 years. I have been in Colorado my whole life, grew up in the Jeffco schools myself. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Snow. I'm also from the Stober community, where I am the SAC chair.
Hello, board members. Thank you for taking our public comments tonight. My name is Michelle Applegate. I live in Applewood, and my husband and I have a sophomore at Golden High School. We have a second grader at Stober Elementary, and we have a sassy little girl who will be entering preschool next year. And we have truly enjoyed and long appreciated the Jefferson County School District and our ability to love and really engage in our local schools. I currently serve as the PTA president for Stober, and I wanted to share with you how excited we are as a school and as a neighborhood for the expansion of our community. The board vision to create regional opportunities for thriving schools is one of the reasons that we are proud to live in Jefferson County. For the entire time that I've been at Stober, we have had temporary buildings on the property that has served as classrooms for music, social emotional learning, and many other things. And so that means that in our recent history, all of our children have experienced their music education in those temporary facilities because there hasn't been space in the building. Knowing that we are adding additional classrooms with our growing community is exciting and encouraging because it means to us that you understand that we want our kids to all be learning inside the building and not in a temporary space. For our growing community, having a facility with adequate space that enables our teachers and staff to give all students the best opportunity to learn and grow is key to implementing your vision and ensure our schools continue to flourish. We are thankful because the reverberations that we feel of a thriving school are not only felt in the classrooms and in our hug and go lines, but they're also felt in our community and they're felt in our neighborhoods. The Stober Edition is integral to building our community, and we truly appreciate the efforts and the commitment of this board to support thriving centers for learning and engage in the success of our school. My children are spread out in age, so I will be at Stober for over 10 years by the time all of them come and go. And for the first half of that, I've seen a lot of changes, and we're super excited for what this investment in our facility is. It's meaningful, it's impactful, and it's going to make a difference to a lot of children. So as a parent and a community member of over 20 years, I'm excited, and we are all very grateful for this investment in our community and our children's future. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. If you likewise could just introduce yourselves, and then the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Mary Jo Abbott, and I'm a proud Jeffco resident. Been here since 1991. Very proud mother of 2 graduates from Golden High School that are now off in college, doing very well. And what else? Oh, I taught for 32 years. I'm retired now, and 19 of those years were right here in Jeffco.
My name is Karen Coleman, and I'm a retired Jeffco teacher, and I'm also a substitute in the district, and I'm the co-president of the JCEA retired group.
Hi, I'm Nancy Perlmutter, and I live in Arvada, and I'm an over 20-year high school math teacher in the district. And during that time, I served as a 2-term president at JCEA, and and I've also been honored to be hired back as a contract math teacher at 3 different high schools, 4 different school years, including this one. But in between time, I've been a guest teacher and substitute in the district as well. So I'll begin my remarks by saying that I appreciate the opportunity to address the Board of Education tonight. You've heard our introductions, and I want to talk with you, to address you about a critical issue, a situation that's been talked about in the Denver Post and in Atlantic Magazine, and a situation that I talked with you about last year, and that is the severe shortage of quality substitute teachers in the school district and its impact on education. This critical shortage of substitute guest teachers has harmful and lasting effects. Teacher morale is damaged when they are continually asked to forfeit valuable planning time to cover classes because a sub is missing in the district. They are also discouraged from using allowed sick leave or personal leave time when they know that they're unlikely to secure a sub, or that they may have to impose upon their colleagues to cover for them. And similarly, building administrators often have to postpone their daily work to fill in for a missing sub. But more importantly, student morale and instructional quality for our Jeffco students is impacted by this situation. And I just wanted to relay a little personal story at a school that has trouble getting subs, but I had done a contract there for a couple days, and one of the students got to know me, and she saw me and came up to me and said, "Mrs. Perlmutter, are you our sub today?" And I said, "Yeah." "Yeah, but are you going to be with us all day long?" And I said, "Yeah." "You're not going to be going to other classes?" Or what? So students get it too, and they're impacted, and they can be upset by the situation. We should all agree that this is a problem, but let's explore the extent to which Jeffco schools may contribute, and it may be a systemic problem that the district may, in some of its policies, exacerbate. So, and then we'll conclude by offering some remedies. The matter of why Jeffco doesn't have enough qualified guest teachers is essentially a human resource problem. We need only recognize that Jeffco sub pay rates are significantly lower than the rates for subs in close neighboring districts, and they're lower by 20 to 45%. I presented some of this data to you last year, and we've given packets to different school board members. I got an email from a person who couldn't be here tonight, but she said, "Be sure and tell the Board of Education that I've been subbing in DPS. Retired teachers get $200 a day, and if they work more than 10 days a month, they get a $400 bonus." That same retired teacher in Jeffco would be making $150 a day. And if they had worked a lot, like 90 days or almost a half-time contract, under Jeffco, they'd make $180 a day, still $20 a day less and no bonus. So I am a math teacher, but you all can do that math too, is what's happening. And also remember, when I'm citing teacher wages, please be sure to deduct para deductions from that. We work for a para employer, and so if you say that we make $150 a day, our actual before tax take-home pay before tax rate is more like $134 a day because of a para deduction. But back to Jeffco. You have a 3-tier pay rate system here, and that is more stringent in its requirements than other districts. Most other districts don't have a tiered system like that, or if they do, they make it pretty simple. If you've done 30 days or at most 45 days some places, you're entitled to an increase in your daily rate. And finally, Jeffco does not offer a special pay rate for retired teachers. Every neighboring district I reviewed does. And this is perplexing and discouraging for retired teachers like me and my friends. The other districts value retired teachers' work for them, and it would seem that Jeffco, by comparison, does not. Retired teachers who work as guest teachers are of value to the school district, and it would be beneficial if pay rates reflected that. So we've shown that even a cursory look demonstrates that Jeffco pay rate's not competitive with neighboring districts on a couple different verticals. And of course, competitive pay would go a long way to attracting and retaining quality substitute workforce and build district loyalty among those employees. So we would propose these 5 things to start with. Increase Jeffco daily rates for subs to $180 a day. Get rid of our tiered system, our 3-tiered system, and offer an increase at over 30 days employment as a sub. Long-term and building-based guest teachers should be paid $200 daily, and the district should look to implement a more robust building-based guest teacher program throughout the district, like many other districts currently use. Guest teachers should be paid an additional $25 for an extra class they cover, or $50 for a block class in high school. I talked to you about this last year, how guest teachers are regularly asked to cover extra classes, and that's a hardship, and they do it for no extra pay, where you do pay teachers if they cover an extra class. And finally, the school district should acknowledge and reward the contribution and value of retired teachers who guest teach and create a retired Jeffco teacher category at a higher entry pay rate of $190 a day. Well, while we're considering all this, and since I have your attention, if I could just slip in another, I think, related matter. There is an issue in that substitute teachers could be thought of as a marginalized class of employees, I would assert, because even though we're touted as being critical to the working of the school district, we're the only employee group that's not represented by an employee association. Who advocates for our interests? Who represents us? Who knows what we know? And how, may I ask, is this equitable? We would never think that teachers could well represent bus drivers, or that administrators could bargain for clerical technical staff, or vice versa. And so we could ask, why does district rely on others like HR, administrators, teachers, to represent the interests of substitute teachers? We would instead suggest that longer term, Jeffco may want to remedy this situation as well. And we would say that if you want to best address the issues of guest teachers, you should talk about guest teacher issues with guest teachers. Thank you for your time tonight. I certainly hope that this time the pleas of guest teachers will be seriously considered by the district and acted on quickly to offer competitive and equitable pay structure for this critically important employee groups, and that you will do it for our teachers, for our building leaders, and most importantly, for the students in Jeffco. I'm convinced that the district can act satisfactorily on this issue, and the question is only then, will it? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. That is the end of our public comment. Thank you very much to those of you who came to share your perspective with the board. We appreciate you taking the time to do so. What? Yeah, we're going to take a quick break while we wait for our next guest to join us, and we will come back in about 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and move forward in our agenda with our legislative update. This will allow the board to hear about and discuss recent legislative activities of the 74th General Assembly. Should the board wish to formally endorse or support legislation, we can also discuss it during this time. Presenting, we have our good friend, Ed Bowditch, who's a partner with Bowditch & Castle Public Affairs, to help walk us through legislation so that we can have a conversation about it. Okay.
Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Bowditch.
Thank you so much for the invitation to come visit you tonight. Happy day 32 of the legislative session. I will start by saying I really appreciate the superintendent and all of the staff members who I frequently rely on to interpret all the legislation, and I get very helpful emails back and financial guidance back as well.
I'm sorry, one moment, please. If we could ask just kindly if there are folks having conversations, that there's a really lovely little lobby area thing. Otherwise, I have to scream and yell, and that makes me unladylike. All right, Mr. Bowditch, back to you.
Thank you. So you should have my February 2nd weekly report. Again, this year I do these reports. Anything that's new for the week, I put in green so you can easily scroll down. All the bills are hyperlinked. Due to the eagle eyes of Director Parker, she noticed I had the same bill listed twice. So on the second page under Other Education, you can see the reference to Senate Bill 99. That should be 94. So I appreciate her reading the report so astutely and pointing that out to me. I want to start by just talking for a minute. So we're a quarter of the way through. There have been a couple hundred bills introduced. Some of the big issues, again, are continuing to come out of COVID, state budget issues. The state is still in a Tabor refund situation. State property taxes are a big discussion. This will be one of the major areas of discussion as we move through the rest of the session. As you know, we have a 2-year reassessment cycle in Colorado. So this May 1st, everyone will get, or on or about May 1st, every taxpayer will get from their assessor the notice that says how much their property is valued as of June 30th, 2022. So most of the market decline has taken place since June 30th. So what that means is we have an estimated 24%, the statewide average is estimated at 24% increase for the 2-year period in the residential property tax assessments. So people's property taxes are going to go up when they get the bills next January. So there's a lot of discussion about should the state provide some sort of relief. There's other discussions about should we go to a 4-year assessment cycle and just skip the June 30th, 2022 cycle. There's challenges with all of those things, but that will be a major discussion. Governor Polis even said we need to do something about the kind of, not the spike, but the dramatic increase in the assessed valuations. So that will be a major discussion moving forward. As you know, that impacts not only local governments, but also school districts. The more local revenues that are collected statewide, the less general fund backfill the districts need, and the more the general fund can do to do things like buy down the negative factor, provide other types of funding, and so on. So it's all related, and that is more to come. Happy to jump right in and start walking through this, Madam Chair. One of the biggest issues is the mid-year supplemental funding adjustment. So in the spring, and last spring, 8 months ago, the legislature estimated enrollment for every school district, at-risk numbers for every school district, and an estimated local revenue share. Then come January in a traditional year, all of those three things are known, and so they do a mid-year supplemental adjustment. Statewide, local revenues increased by $93 million. That was very surprising. Total enrollment decreased statewide by 1,500 students, but the at-risk count went way up by 25, almost 26,000 students. Those are the statewide figures. For Jefferson County School District, the enrollment went down by about 739 students, And so that means there will be a mid-year supplemental adjustment of $4.2 million downward. Now, in talking to your CFO just today, twice today, I think, we had a long talk about this, and certainly she, because of the October count, she already knew these figures and has worked that into her modeling. So this is not a surprise to her at all. Now, the good news is, as we look towards next year, because of the increase in local funds, as well as the decrease statewide of enrollment, the governor has increased the amount of the BS factor buy down he is recommending. In his initial budget, it was $35 million. Now he's recommending, or it was $35 million. Now he's recommending a little over $100 million for that. And so that is $110 million BS factor buy down. So that's his recommendation to the legislature. The legislature will determine the final amount in the next few weeks. So in the past, the governor's budget has been a floor. It would sure be nice if it were a floor this year, but if it's that figure, that is a very positive figure in my mind to do 8% and $110 million beyond that. I haven't seen any district-specific figures for that revised budget request from the governor, but I consider that to be positive news, and hopefully there won't be any economic changes between now and when the legislature does that figure setting. Moving on to some of the bills, you can see I have a link this year. I have a full Jeffco bill report that is hyperlinked where every K-12 bill is listed in my bill tracking service, and you can see the up-to-date scheduling, and if you're interested in a particular thing. For these this year, I tried to group them by topics. So you can see I started with students. A lot of these I don't consider to be really all that substantive, but things I wanted to just bring to your attention in the student arena. One of the issues that I wanted to spend a little more time on is House Bill 1109, the school policies and student conduct. We've seen bills on student discipline every year. There is a lot of focus on the number of students who are expelled and the types of students who are expelled. The demographics don't always align to overall district demographics. And I'm not talking about Jeffco, I'm talking about statewide. So there are individuals who introduce bills every year and I really want districts to focus more on are there alternatives to expulsion and are there disparities within each district. And this bill modifies district policies regarding the expulsion. There's an elevated burden of proof regarding expulsion, and it increases standards involving off-campus issues. Right now, there is a lot of focus on this bill. Case and CASB and the rural schools are all opposed. Most of the large districts are monitoring this and just letting Case and CASB work with the sponsors. When you talk about student discipline, obviously you can get into cyberbullying and all sorts of issues. So they really want to get this one right, but Case and CASB are working with the legislative sponsor right now on this bill. You can also see Senate Bill 29 right below that. This came out of a student advocacy group, and this just asks districts to implement policies to address disproportionate discipline. I'm told this bill will have a pretty significant amendment in the next few days that will be applied to it that will really make it more into a study might be the right word. And so at this point, I'm not sure this is as much concern. I did want to say down below in green, Senate Bill 99, the special education funding. The last few years, as you know, special education is funded through a combination of federal sources, state sources, and district sources. And if any of those first two sources are inadequate, it's the districts that pick up the rest of the share. It's something that the districts obviously want to do to make sure education is provided, but also there's all sorts of legal requirements. In the last few years, the state has made a very concerted effort, really led by Senators Rachel Zenzinger and Barbara Kirkmeyer, to increase the state funding for special education, knowing that if they increase the state funding, that just helps out every district throughout the state. Last year, I think it was 75 or 80 million additional that the state put in. This year, there's a bill to do another 40 million for the Tier B special education services. The bill's been through one committee, still early in the process, but it got very strong support when it came out of the School Finance Interim Committee.
I have a follow-up question, Mr. Bowditch. So for that bill, the amount listed 40.2 million. Can you talk about, and maybe in the text of the bill, what is that percentage of what full funding would be?
I think that, in terms of getting closer to full funding?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Okay.
I'll put that in this week's report.
That'd be
because I
helpful.
can find that out. Yeah.
Because sometimes these amounts of money, it's like, are we talking about 40 million and 400 of six? It's hard to contextualize. Yeah, so that would be very helpful.
The one thing I do have right now, I think, is the current state allocation of state dollars for special education is 300 million. That's this year, I believe. So 40 million is a nice, healthy increase. Now, special ed is done not through the formula. It's categorical, so it's part of school finance, but not in the School Finance Act. The categoricals have to increase by inflation as a group, not each individual one. This year, with 8% inflation, the categoricals have to increase by a minimum of 36 million in total. And that's special education, English language learners, transportation, gifted and talented, and career and technical education. If special ed gets 40 million, that would be more than all the categoricals combined. But I know that the JBC will be talking about categoricals on Monday, and they're aware of the need to try and do something for the other categoricals as well.
That'd be helpful information to have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you just said that, would the 40 million replace the 30 million or be on top of it?
I think it would replace it. I think so. Last year, when they gave 80 million to special education, which was far in excess of what they were required to do, they counted that as the categorical increase. They would probably do that again this year. Moving on to some of the other bills today, you can see there's a continued focus down at the bottom of page 1 about educator programs, interstate compacts, and so on. Again, not generating a lot of controversy about these. Then you get into the educational standards, assessments, and accountability. We've seen bills to try and eliminate that one state assessment that is not required by the federal government. Those bills have been unsuccessful in the past. And then Senate Bill 71, the Education Accountability Act. Case and CASB support this. This would give legal standing to districts to challenge State Board of Education decisions on accreditation and some other issues. There has been some concern that this would lead to lots of additional lawsuits every time the State Board, well, maybe not every time, but when the State Board made a decision that a district didn't like, if it had legal standing, it could challenge it, and everything would become a kind of a lawsuit in waiting. But Case and CASB certainly support that. I think more than anything as a way to say there has to be some way for districts to have an ability to challenge a State Board of Education ruling.
Mr. Bowditch, I have a question about that, and feel free to jump in as we kind of move through these sections. Actually, I have two questions in that section. One is on Senate Bill 6061, so around that you just referenced, around the eliminating state assessments in social studies. I would just be curious from a district perspective if there is a strong feeling that that is something that the district leadership supports, sort of a pro-con on that. And then I'll pause there. And that can be something if folks aren't quite ready to jump in. But it seems to me when I look at it and I hear people talk about it, I'm like, right, why are we spending time for elementary school kids testing if we don't have to? But that's a very simple way of thinking about it. So I'm curious for some nuance of why that's been controversial to get passed.
Well, I would just say that I think there's a lot of energy around this notion that we're testing a lot, and maybe is it too much? And how do we find that balance between making sure we can have data for accountability purposes and at the same time honor the incredible need we have for instructional time with students? And with that, I might ask Ms. Nicothodes if she has sent any specific input or thoughts from her team. And if you don't, it's okay. We can get back to the board. But do you have anything to share that your team might say about the social studies assessment, Ms. Nicothodes? That's okay. We're talking about a bill that contemplates not administering the state's social studies assessment, given that it is not required. And so do you know if your team has an opinion about that? Or if not, it's okay. We can get back to the board. But
I haven't had any conversations with them around it. I'm sure they have opinions, but I just haven't engaged in that conversation. Happy to do a follow-up, though, and get back to you.
Great. We'll get back to the board. It looks like everybody's shaking their head yes. So we'll provide in your weekly update, either this week or next week, some information about team's thoughts on that.
Great, thank you so much. And my question around Senate Bill 71, and you mentioned before, CASB, they're just coming in support of that bill. And this is really, I think, a question from Ms. Tollison, maybe, or Mr. Bowditch. But I'm wondering if that structure of having legal standing as a school district to be able to sue state Board of Ed, is that a norm in other states? Is this something that would be considered a sort of best practice outside of Colorado? I'm trying to figure out how this has sort of looked in other places, and exactly, yes.
So to be sure I'm understanding your question, it's about the standing of school districts to sue the State Board of Education. The short answer about other states is I don't know. I will say that in Colorado, it would be difficult because school districts are created by statute as political subdivisions of the state. So the way it functions here makes conceptual sense in that legal framework. School districts aren't independent in that respect. So otherwise, I'm sorry, I just haven't thought through that.
No, that's okay. I'm not trying to catch anyone off guard. I just have a desire to understand sort of what the sort of pros, cons, and thinking of how that would impact not just Jeffco, but as a system, if it has worked elsewhere, what has worked about it, and what should we maybe be thoughtful about in terms of concerns. So if anything pops up that you think would be helpful, that'd be awesome. Especially with our larger state organizations like CASB supporting it, I'd like to dig into it a little bit. Are there other questions right now? I didn't want to dominate that time, but yeah, Director Miller.
May I just follow up on that? Is there a catalyst for this? Is there a basis of why? I know, but I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, I assume it is it's coming back to the state board for certain districts that may not be serving children the way that they're expected to be serving kiddos over time, and so is that where this is coming from? Is it? I'd just be curious, like what is simmering that we need to try to figure out how to solve?
I don't know if there's a specific issue or a general set of issues that led the sponsors to bring this bill. So,
I might have a little insight on that one. You may recall that the state has taken significant action against Adams 14 School District after its decade or so long underperformance. Adams 14 attempted to sue the State Board of Education, and that case was dismissed for lack of standing just a few months ago. So I would suspect that's the impetus.
You can see also some other education bills that have been that I've listed down there. Again, the one thing down under Senate Bill, mislabeled 99, the Special Transportation Task Force was introduced. I think trying to get some folks together to look at the transportation provisions, knowing that we have a bus driver shortage, students' transportation has been impacted. They want to put a group together to look at this over the next year and come back to the legislature with some concepts. Is there any, and are there any legislative remedies other than coming up with more money? Some general government issues that affect all public entities. I mentioned kind of the property tax 1054. I don't think that bill is going to become the answer to the property tax issue. I did want to point out House Bill 1065. This one would include school districts as well as special districts under the purview of the Independent Ethics Commission. Right now, the Independent Ethics Commission can look at issues from state entities. I think the sponsors wanted to broaden this to include special districts, but school districts are included as well. Finally, one of the major bills under the general government that is not listed here has not been introduced yet, but I normally don't come and talk about a lot of issues that haven't been introduced, but on this one it's been pretty public about an expansion of the Open Records Act. So all public entities are subject to the provisions of the Open Records Act. If somebody wants to see a copy of minutes, those are sent out. If somebody requests a public entity to do something that will require a lot of research, the public entity can charge for that within certain guidelines. This bill might differentiate requests made by the public versus requests made by the media in terms of the fee schedule. Again, the bill hasn't been introduced yet. I've talked to your staff about some of the questions that this might raise, but when the bill is introduced, I will definitely add it to the list.
So hypothetically, if I have a blog, I'm part of the media and then would be included in that. I mean, these are, I would imagine, some of the challenges in defining what.
That is exactly one of the challenges.
Yeah.
If you are a blogger or a vlogger, which I didn't know that term, a video blogger, vlogger, does that qualify you as a media? The state House and Senate have faced these own issues when they give a pass for media to come sit on the floor of the House of the Senate. Well, again, how do you define media? But that bill, once it's introduced, I will certainly put it on the list.
Okay, board members, did I interrupt you in the middle? Okay, board members, other questions about any of these bills and or comments around ones that you would have interest in the board exploring in more depth, maybe getting more information on, maybe endorsing or what's the opposite of endorse? Hate? No. Dislike strongly? Whatever it is called. Yeah. That you would be interested in moving forward with at a time when we have time to prepare for that. Director Parker?
I am interested very much in the School Accountability Act and finding out, first of all, if it is something we can do given our status under Colorado law as not independent. And I also wanted to say that I am going to start participating in a stakeholders group that Senator Coker is putting together. And so I will be able to find out where they're looking for more information from school districts. I know that one of the things he has mentioned is the transportation bill. It seems like it's just a work study bill right now, so it's not changing anything, but really he mentioned privatization of transportation services. And so I'm not sure if they are thinking of 100% privatizing or if it's just some kind of a combination of it. But anyway, that's two of the bills that I've heard so far, and I'm looking forward to getting in on the early days of bills and before they actually go to committee hearings. And so I'll keep in touch.
Other board members, areas of interest where you'd like to perhaps have more information or context, or where there's a sort of passion connection there for you? And we can circle back on this, and then if there are areas in which we can provide Mr. Bowditch with some guidance around board priorities or endorsements, then we can have that follow-up conversation.
And I am happy to come out as frequently as you'd like. This time of the year is busy, so.
Yeah. Great.
And feel free, if you have just questions about other bills, feel free. Email us oftentimes. I'll always look for your emails. So,
Director Parker?
As far as your full report that you have, I'm just looking it over now for the first time. Do you include the groups that are in support and opposition to bills on your report?
I have not done that. On the bill tracker, if you click the Jeffco bill report, that only includes information about that bill.
I'd be interested, especially if CASB are one of the groups that we are associated with.
If I can easily do that, and I think I can put in a column for CASB positions. So I think I can do that pretty easily. CASB is very nice, and they share their bill tracker with me, and I think they have 5 or 6 positions, so it shouldn't be too difficult.
That would be helpful. I'd like that as well. Great. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Bowditch? Okay. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Good to see everybody.
Good to see you as well. Okay, board, we will move along in our agenda to 4.02, which is a discussion around Phase 1 regional opportunities for thriving schools and the CIP projects included, and with expenditures and timelines related specifically to Phase 1 regional opportunities for thriving schools. This information will also inform our decision-making on certain pending consent agenda items. I want to note that in addition to this presentation tonight, the board will receive a comprehensive update on the CIP in a special study session that is going to be scheduled or is scheduled for February 24th. So I'm going to ask Superintendent Dorland, is there anything you'd like to add before we introduce our friends?
No, I just want to yes. I don't know why I always start with no. Yes, I do want to share something. Thank you very much, President Schooley. I will just remind the board that in December, we discussed some of these projects in your study session related to the closing of 16 schools and the receiving schools and capital improvements in the receiving schools. At the time, the board had many questions about those projects. And so we are working on a more broad overview for you all about the entire CIP program, including these projects that some have changed in scope because of the closures and some are new because of the closures, which you will receive on the 24th of February. In the meantime, as you can imagine, projects are timely and we need decisions in order to continue to move the work forward if that is the decision of the board. And so that we can make progress and open and have these investments in our schools done for next school year. And so tonight, one of the questions the board asked related to the CIP projects that are on your consent agenda related to ROFs, and as well as other CIP projects that, by the way, as you noticed, are coming in over budget, was a good question around how does this impact the overall? And so I really appreciate that question from, I think every single one of you asked it. And I want to just acknowledge that David Supis, who's here to present to you for the first time and is about, 2 weeks on the job? Yep, thank you for being here. And Ms. Copeland and Mr. Reed worked diligently over the last day or so after these questions started coming in to make sure that we could answer that for you as best as possible this evening, knowing that we're also headed to the 24th of February where we'll have more information for you at that time. And so thank you for the question, and we'll let these guys begin the presentation and allow you to ask some questions and have some dialogue. So thanks. Mr. Supis.
Sorry. We will go through a few slides here through this deck. And please obviously ask questions as you want. We'll let Tim Reed, who's our Executive Director of Facilities, to cover some of the more specifics on the projects. And then we have some financial numbers near the end, as well as some more context as you think about the consent agenda tonight and how you view that in light of where we roughly think we are in the program. So with that, I'll go through the intro pretty quickly and then turn it over to Tim. Obviously, as you're aware, there was last summer, you had presentations to understand the status of the CIP program. You also were able to establish priority for the ROFs schools that might be coming down the pipe. In November, you voted on that. In December, you got an initial view of what we thought some of the costs might be at various schools in order to absorb additional students through ROFs. We're going to provide an update on some of those numbers, what the projects kind of look like, what's the general scope of the project, and the numbers. But again, if you want more details, please just shout at us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim for a few minutes to start walking through a number of the projects.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. So this is the work that we have ongoing as it stands now, and this is basically the same material that we had presented back in November, December. The scope of the work on these projects really hasn't changed. I mean, this is what's proceeding as far as design goes. And actually things are moving well in terms of some of the projects are coming in to be bid. They're on your consent agenda this evening. And then the bulk of them will be on the March agenda, and those tend to be smaller projects that actually we got started a little bit later, but because of the very nature of the project, that shouldn't impact the overall schedule. So we are still working on having all of these projects that are indicated as complete for the August 2023 school year, with the exception of Bergen Valley. And to be honest, I think that the schedule on Stober is probably late October or November for completion of that addition. So, and we're working with the school as well as the contractor on kind of a plan B in case that is in fact the case. So I'm just going to go through these quickly unless you have questions on any of them in particular.
I think what we'll do is just wait, listen to the presentation so we get the full context of what you guys are sharing, and then we can have a dialogue afterward if that works for you all.
Okay,
thank you.
Fine. Okay, so this number has not changed significantly. This is the total school savings from the closed schools. Some of these numbers are budgets because they're dynamic, will change slightly as projects close out or whatever. But fundamentally, we're still at about 17.6 million in savings. So this is the next slide, which really kind of outlines both what the current construction estimate is, what it was when we talked back in December, and what the variance is, and then when you can expect to see these projects come before you on consent. So as you can see that we have quite a few of them that are the end of February, which is when we'll get the pricing, and they'll come to you for approval in March. And this is basically a summary of where we are. So the receiving school costs were at 32.3 million. We're carrying a 14% contingency and soft costs. And the reason why that is lower than what you would usually see is that these projects are guaranteed maximum price contracts. So the construction manager, general contractor who we've hired to do this also carries a contingency. So we've subtracted that out of what we would normally carry so that we're not overstating the contingencies. And then this is basically the net total with the total savings and then the allocations for the additions. So right now it's at approximately 7.2 million needed in additional funds.
So now I'll ask Ms. Copeland, our CFO, to walk you through briefly a page. I believe you've been handed out a page that provide some context around the projects that are up on the consent agenda this evening for your approval, provide some forward-looking view of what the project's totals would be next month, and provides a sense of where we're at relatively in the program in terms of unallocated funds that could be, and how much of that would be used through these various approvals.
Great, thanks. And board members, good to see you. This is a slightly new context for me, so bear with me. I'm still new to all of these numbers. So after looking at, and some of my source documents, which are available to both you and our listening public, are these sheets that are printed for each CAC meeting and then posted online, and provide kind of summary data for the total program, different total program than the one we talk about usually, but the total CIP program. And they're helpful to work back from, I think. And so what I've done this evening is worked from one of these standard reports that comes out and that indicated that as of January 15th, and again, the CAC didn't actually meet in January, so you might need to go back to December 15th if you're looking online, but it's a similar number. As of January 15th, the total combined contingency and unallocated was 58 million. Let's call it 58.6, went around. And then towards the bottom of this page, it helps you unpack that number into forecasted remaining funds and projects, which is also several words that mean contingency. And then the final box, net remaining program funds, is what we call unallocated, the true unallocated. It's not assigned as contingency to any project. So that amount right there is 53 million. So in the supplemental page I prepared this afternoon that was recently uploaded to board docs, you see those exact same numbers. And again, this is the source document. It comes out every month. Those numbers move every month just a little bit. And as an example, as you remember from our revised budget in January, the district as a whole is receiving more revenue and interest. And of course, some of that interest is attributable to our general fund and our operating dollars, but some of that is attributable to our bond proceeds and CIP. And we very carefully track the two separately. And so any earnings on the bond proceeds or the capital reserve go into those buckets, right? And so as that number has increased, we effectively grow the overall program size, and those additional unexpected interest revenue, starts to deposit into, again, unallocated, right? Because it didn't really have a use yet. So that's a little bit why that number shifts over time. It also tends to grow as we close out the projects and the projects don't use their full contingency. So if you're like me and you sort of like thinking, okay, it's always a maximum number and we're just going to take, it's confusing because then we also put more into it. And that's why it's moving in both directions on a month over month basis. So in the handout I prepared, I mentioned that on tonight's consent agenda, each item shows you what the original construction budget was, and then to the right it shows an allocated portion of soft costs and other things, so for more of a total cost version. And then looking at the construction piece alone, it then walks you through how much has either already been spent, I'm spitballing here because I'm trying to do this from memory, and then how much either additional work or new work is left for that particular project, and then it kind of nets out to a number. And that final number is the amount above any of the existing budget or assigned contingency for that specific project. And so what I've attempted to do, because it's multiple different items on the agenda, and that's kind of hard to sum across, is I went ahead and listed them and summed them for you. And so you can see for all the items on the agenda, the total use of unallocated proceeds at the moment is 8.7 million. The largest portion is, of course, the Stober project, which is about 5.5. The rest are either smallish new projects or projects that are costing more than the original budget and contingency combined. So that's an 8.7. Then working from, and if you'll just back up a teeny bit on the deck,
to the slide that looks like this. There we go. So working from this list, I looked at all these projects, particularly the ones where it says coming to the board in March, right? And looked at the current construction estimate. I worked also, again, from public documents about any existing projects. So for example, a Swanson, what has been part of our existing program tracking, et cetera, what's the current cost estimate? And in that way, I then summed up a new set of numbers to get to, for what we're seeing right up here and what might come in front of you in March. These are all estimates at this point. How much additional unallocated might it use for the rest of the projects on this list? And that is what gets us to, if all these come forward as projected, March 9th BoE projects, the combined estimate is 10.4. And again, that's only the portion above existing project budget and existing contingency for those specific projects that have contingency, right? So helping the board sort of think through between the two potential sets, tonight's agenda and the items on it, and the potential March agenda, which is, again, just a set of forecasts. Those numbers might look a little different. You would utilize an additional 10.4 on top of tonight's 8.7. That would leave you with approximately 34 million in unallocated proceeds or dollars within the capital improvement program. And with the caveat that that number continues to shift over time as we conclude projects and realize interest revenue, and there's other changes. And then the final caveat is, I believe that part of the discussion on the 24th is going to be, of the remaining planned projects, do they all still make sense? And are there any that maybe don't, right? And so the other way that unallocated might grow in the future is if the board decides that any of the future projects don't make sense in our context, right? So you can sort of think about that. But otherwise, I think that the numbers I'm presenting now, to the best of my knowledge, given what I have, I think represent kind of a pretty full accounting that even includes the most of, if not all of, the raw savings, right? So you might be asking, wait a minute, is the savings sort of separate? Is it in? I think it's almost entirely in, meaning it's already sort of been converted into unallocated. Does that make sense? Okay. I know I'm not supposed to ask you questions, so I retract my question. Apology. Feel free to ask me questions, and that's all I have.
Thank you. I do just want to make one more point, and then, if that's okay, President Schooley. Thank you to Brenna for jumping in on this. And I have mentioned to you all, as part of our process improvement around this work, that we do plan to move the financial oversight and accounting of this program to our finance team. And so that's going to happen. And Brenna is working on what type of staffing she's going to need on her team to make that work. And obviously that position, that bond accountant, so to speak, for lack of a better way to call it, since we're working on a job position posting right now, would work very closely with David and Tim's team to make sure that the accounting practices for this align to the district's accounting practices from a best practice perspective from our CFO. So that is going to be happening. And I just wanted to make sure that the board knew we were going to be taking some next steps so that we can regularly show you the big picture while you're making individual decisions that impact that big picture. That's been a request that you have asked for over and over again, and we need to deliver on that. And so we're going to be making some shifts in our practice to make sure we can.
Thank you to all three of you. Thank you, Superintendent Orland. I will open it up then for questions and comments from the board. Director Parker, would you like to kick it off?
Actually, I just want to ask, the report that you were holding up that comes from the CAC, that's it, I'm trying to find it online, and when was that from? What's the date of that?
Yeah, and I made it a tiny bit tricky. So I attend CAC on a monthly basis, and the last official CAC meeting was December, so that was December 15th. We skipped the January meeting. Nonetheless, Tim's team, did produce a preliminary January report. So I am using January numbers at the moment that aren't yet on the website. So if you're trying to find my precise numbers, I have slightly more current ones, but I wanted to use more current because it was available, even though I knew it wasn't on the website just yet.
It seems like maybe this is one of those areas we have and some new staff support for the board. Jennifer Zavada just joined our team, and there have been requests. I think this is one of those areas where we can begin having more easily accessible information at the fingertips of board members, kind of like that, just to pool them, that they don't have to move from where you typically put them, but to duplicate them in a space where for board members we can find them. I know a lot of stuff is on board docs, which is not the most user-friendly. It's good for institutional memory, not so great for finding things. So we will be, bless you, working on some of those systems to make sure that we all are sharing information in a way that's really easily accessible for us as board members.
We're also very grateful to Director Parker, who's going to be joining our CAC committee. And will become much more familiar as a board member, and I think helpful for her board colleagues around the forms and documents that we're using to share out these types of things. So thank you, Ms. Parker.
All right. Is there anyone that would like to go and ask questions? Director Miller?
So thank you very much, and I'm really glad you're involved, Brenna. Thank you. If I'm looking at the presentation this evening, and you have this one. Thank you. Just a couple questions. In December, we had on this same spreadsheet about $750,000 allocated for the purposes of relocation and I believe technology. And I also think we had a $90,000 associated with Ryan and Hutchins upgrades for SPED. And I don't see those on here, or are they included in the numbers for construction estimates?
The relocation and the technology numbers are covered in the contingency number, the $4.5 million that we're carrying for that.
Okay, so they're part of the 14%. Is that correct?
Yes.
Both of those,
Yes.
So about $800,000 is being held there. Okay.
And then, as far as Hutchinson, the SPED program was moved out of there, so we're not making any improvements to that one. And which was the other?
Ryan,
and we weren't making any improvements up there either.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look because I had thought that there was a line item for them. But, okay. In the little column, the CIP construction funds, when I look at the consent agenda item, it says that we have $338,000 from CIP that is supposed to be going for little, and that amount would be in the first column for the CIP. So if I'm looking at the consent agenda item number, what number is it? Thank you. Yes. I just want to make sure that we're capturing the CIP dollars appropriately so that we're carrying them through the entire document calculation. Okay, so that's just a note. Going back to the point of we have certain projects that I could say would be encumbered, so to speak, from the bond proceeds at the very beginning of this whole investment of the facilities across the district. We had earmarked a certain amount of money for priorities of some schools or some upgrades to other places that may impact. That is separate, correct, from the bond premium that we have or the unallocated money that we are looking at right now on this sheet. Is that correct?
When you say additional projects, are you just talking about the existing plans for 2024 and 2025 that were always part of?
That were always apart from the very beginning, correct?
Yes. So that comes out of effectively kind of the not started and or design on this cover page that all adds up to the total program. But yes, anything that was originally part of the CIP and that maybe hasn't started yet is taken out first before we compute any amount of money that we consider to be unallocated.
So I don't have that in front of me. So
I apologize.
That's okay. So what would that amount as of the January time when you did that calculation?
Yeah, and so what's cool about this is it lists, so there's a project count of 49 and a dollar value of 83.8 million. There's also a design status, and I guess I would say that's pretty early in the project, so I put that still pretty early. There's 21 projects in design for a combined value of 17 million. So between not started and design, approximately 100 million. And so I think my colleague David has mentioned, I think you mentioned it, did you mention it? that we want to take a look at all of our projects and kind of reassess.
Great.
And really make sure that the dollar amounts right there, that 100 million does reflect our best thinking on potential project costs and, you know, what is the contingency there, what isn't, what are we considering, what are the assumptions. So just do another look given that massive spike in costs. I don't want to speak for you, David. I apologize.
No, it's just simply we're going to go and look at any of the in-process projects as well as any that haven't started. And if we were going to reforecast them today, do we feel comfortable with what the numbers show? What people tend to do, and it's not doing anything wrong, is they stay with the budget number until they're absolutely sure it's either going to be more or it's going to be less than that, and then they will share that information. We want to take a hard look at it and just make sure there's not huge gotchas out there. Because again, more context as you're making decisions for future requests.
Right. So the unallocated proceeds right now of the 34 million, that's one side, shall we say, and then the 80-some million, whatever you said, is another side or another bucket that we can look at, correct? Okay, great, thank you.
All projects in the program have been budgeted. So there are 10 renovations and the 2 new schools that are in that not started piece, and the rest of the projects are FF&E projects.
Right.
So, but yeah, the budgets for those have been established. So the unallocated is pure.
And so when we talk then, I guess it's the end of February when we have the conversation, that's the time we can start to kind of talk about priorities, because I'm thinking of the lights that people raised for the high schools. I'm thinking of pre-K that was raised for Stanley Lake and potentially for Wheat Ridge. And so some of those conversations that we've been having here at the board table, those are going to be the ones that we bring forward at that time. Is that what you're thinking, Superintendent Dorland?
Yes, I think we'll be able to, my hope for the 24th is just that we take a look at the overall program, make sure that board members have a chance to really understand some of what we're talking about here tonight, because it is complicated, and I want to make sure you have time to really dig into the overall program and understand it. And it is true that while we're, probably more than 2/3 of the way through this thing, we should acknowledge that we have shifting demographics and needs. We're closing 16 elementary schools. And so we need to just take a step back and say, what do we need? I think the way that Mr. Stupas described it as, let's look at the upcoming work and make sure that it's still the right work, make sure that our project estimates seem reasonable and that we're not going to walk into some surprises that we could have assumed or possibly anticipated. That's going to be important. And that work might not be done by the 24th, but it's in progress and we can give you an update at that time. And the other thing I think we need to look at is not only what are some of the projects we've contemplated that are new, but we also are working on Fletcher Miller, which has been at the request of the board. So we want to be able to talk to you about that soon. And we have things that were on the list. They were on the cutting room floor when the bond was passed. And so we also want to make sure that those things are included in the conversation. And so we will be able to at least begin that conversation on the 24th. And I think it's going to end up being an ongoing conversation because we have to get through Regional Opportunities Phase 2. There's just, we're going to have to keep talking about it.
Right. And as it shifts, we need to be able to make those decisions about how we are going to invest from a board's perspective to address those needs.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm good with that right now. Thank you very much.
Other questions, comments from directors? I'll go back to Ms. Parker.
Thanks. A couple of things. For the guaranteed minimum price contracts, when do they change? I mean, when is it not guaranteed anymore?
It's never, as long as the scope of the work, and it's guaranteed maximum price, it's not minimum.
I mean, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
As long as the scope of the work stays the same, then the price doesn't change.
Well, what about situations like the weather, unforeseen? It's built in.
It is
Okay.
built in.
So it'd really only be that we have changed the scope of the work.
Basically, we change the scope or that events occur. And I think Alameda is the classic example of that, where we had the extension of the 4 months where we couldn't do any work because of the state not issuing the asbestos permit. That extends the contractor's time on the job and the cost of the work. So that is what we would consider a scope change. But basically, the work, and we've taken that approach on these projects because we have a very tight time frame to work with. We need to understand that that these are constructible projects, that there's no real hidden pieces in here that might slow it down or things like that. So it's important, I think, to bring the contractor on board to work with the consultant to come up with the best solution, as opposed to normally we would put this out to bid, and that's a 3 or a 4 week time period while they get the pricing together, and then we would go forth there. But we don't have the 3 to 4 weeks right now to extend, to meet the August deadline or the August school opening date. We need all the time we can get from November to August. So.
Also, when in the project process does it come to the board for us to vote on? And I'm asking it specifically, is it really in advance of anything happening? Or is it as soon as we have a board meeting, but it might have actually work had started?
So customarily, when we hire a CMGC, we will issue a PO for what's called pre-construction services, which really is just a few $1,000s to cover their cost of working with the consultant before it goes to the board or before it becomes a real project. So we won't take the number or the contract to the board until we have the defined guaranteed maximum price. So what you see on the agenda tonight are guaranteed maximum price contracts.
But are they contracts that work has not yet begun?
Well, yes, that's right. Other than what we call the pre-construction services piece.
Right. Okay. So it wouldn't be a matter of if we were to decline approval that we're stuck in the middle with costs that we owe, but we haven't approved. Okay.
Correct. Other than the cost that, pre-construction costs.
Question? I have a couple to ask, but do you all have questions or comments right now? Okay. I have just a couple questions. One is more just a comment. I greatly appreciate having sort of context for these decisions. There are so many of the construction items that come to us for approval, and it's as a sort of one and done. It's really difficult to understand how these come back and impact the total program. And I think we've had several conversations over the last several years. So without going back in time, thank you. I think it's a super helpful and sort of due diligence way to be as a board. So thank you for that. I have a question about the contract that's on consent for Stober. So you made a comment about it could be October based on factors with the
preliminary schedule. So, the contractor intends to break ground during spring break of this year. Or in next month, actually. And hopefully can move forward as quickly as possible. It's not a very big addition, but you just don't know. And it's a different scenario than, say, Prospect Valley, because we already had the contractor on site. And the architect had already done a preliminary, as a part of the master plan for the site, a preliminary addition to that building. So we weren't exactly starting at ground zero. With the Stober piece, we did. I mean, even though we brought the same architect and the same contractor on board that did the renovation a year or so ago, that still, they had to start with, with the new design and what they needed to do and, where were we going to put it and that kind of thing. So just being, fully transparent that the preliminary schedule that I've seen may go beyond opening day, but we will do everything we can to get it done as soon as possible.
I appreciate that, and particularly if once the board gets to voting on those consent agenda items, my advocacy would be, you can't control for weather and some timelines, but in going back to one of the early slides on this presentation, I think our principals have done a really great job in getting students, welcoming them, and having them enroll in their schools as we have asked them to do. And it's significant for lots of our receiving schools, our welcoming schools. And so my hope is there's a place to put those kids because they are our very, very old temps, as we heard before from that group of parents. And so, being able to advocate for the sort of follow through on what we've asked our community to do and what we've asked our school leadership to do, and making that possible for kids as part of what has not always been a smooth and untraumatic process for some families would be, I think, part of our responsibility, collective responsibility. So I just put that out there to you in all of your power.
And I would just say, I think, you don't want to, if it's a little bit delayed from the beginning of the school year, what I have done in previous circumstances like that is make sure the kids can come to the school, but there's sort of a temporary solution until we can move into that portion of the building. And I'm just hoping and so we will have that conversation because it doesn't make sense to not have kids in the building that want to be there if it's a 2-month lag or a month lag until we can actually move in. And hopefully we make it on time. That's why we wanted to talk about this tonight and not wait till the 24th even, because we want to get going. And there are ways to bridge a gap of a month or two in a school so that the kids who want to be part of that school community can be. So we will work with that and school principals to make sure, at Stober, and to make sure that works. Yeah, I see her over there. She's going like this.
What we did at Jeffco Open, which did not, it wasn't 100% ready to open, but we worked closely with the principal and managed to get them on board and everything worked out fine.
Great. I appreciate it. Just want to make sure that's elevated as part of that conversation as we move forward. Board members, any other Yep, Director Varda.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together. And I know it was quick and that you probably had to not do something to get that done so quickly. So I think it was really important for us. And thank you, Ms. Relu, and for the team for being so responsive.
Thanks to Brenna. She really stepped in today. We appreciate that. And then I guess I would say all of your questions are fair. And if some of the information has been presented is not meeting your needs at the level it needs to, please do ask. Maybe a little more time next time, but please do ask, because you're the ones having to make decisions over large sums of money. In order to do that, you need to feel like you have the information available to you.
Right. Yep, we're getting those systems in place. All right. Yes, absolutely, Director Miller.
If I could just ask one last question about page 13. Just for clarity, when we're talking about the summary, we're looking at the receiving schools are receiving X millions of dollars from a cash flow. That's what we're spending the dollars on. And we do have a savings from the schools that we're not investing in, which is the 17 point some, and I shouldn't say not investing in, but we're not going to be spending the CIP dollars on them. So our net overall is about $18-19 million of cash out that we are spending on the schools for the purposes of making sure our kids are safe, making sure our kids have places to go with the closures of the school. So I just want to make sure we're tracking it from a cash flow, because I think the 12 million allocation of additions kind of skews that number. And then we'd have to put in Bergen, and then we'd have to. So I just think we need to be thoughtful about this as a cash flow perspective, because it is dollars that are spent, and then what we're saving because we're not spending those money. But then there's a balance. So that would be my ask for futures, just so we are tracking it as a cash flow basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before we let these folks go? Okay, thank you, all three of you. I appreciate your work and responsiveness, as Director Varda pointed out, to help get clarity around these very big issues. Okay, we are going to move forward to our consent agenda. Items 5.01 through 5.31 are presented in board docs as a proposed consent agenda. District staff informed me they'd like to pull item 5.24 and submit it at a later date. Do I have any requests to remove any other items from the consent agenda? Director Miller. Sure.
I'd like to ask for the removal of, we've already removed 5.24, for the removal of 5.26, 5.27, and I think that's all I needed, actually, after this conversation. Well, 2.4 is, I think, already done, isn't it? Oh, okay.
2.6 and 2.7. Mm-hmm. Are there any other consent agenda items that directors would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay.
I do want to pull those. Yeah.
Correct. Got it. So,
Madam President, just real quick, just because I had from an email kind of prepared the script thinking.
I was supposed to use that script. I'm sorry.
No, it's you're fine. That 5.25 might be coming off, and if it's not, that's fine. I just want to be sure we don't somehow wind up with a gap.
Yeah, I didn't need to do 5.25 because of the conversation that was had about the delivery of the building at the appropriate time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great. So items 5.24, 5.26, and 5.27 will be removed from the consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding the remainder of the consent agenda?
I move to approve items 5.01 through 5.23. And let's see, so we're going to put, and 5.26, right? Through, oh, that's right. Okay, so 5.28 through 5.31 on the consent agenda as published in board docs. And 5.25.
Yes, 5.25 would be in there too if it hasn't been pulled.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Right. It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as revised. Can I say that? Great. Roll call, please. Ms. Lang.
Yes. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes. Okay. I'd like to turn now to the items pulled from the consent agenda. Item 5.26 is a proposal to approve an increase in the guaranteed maximum price for the partial replacement of Alameda Junior Senior High School. Do I have a motion on this item? No. I can do the motion, right? I move to approve item 5.26 as posted in board docs. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you very much. The reason I asked for this item to be discussed at the table is that Alameda has been a school that we have continued to be brought forward for additional investment. And so my question is, are we almost finished? Are we completed with Alameda after this project? I know we still are talking about Strive, but my concern is that we keep having Alameda come forward and draw more contingency money. And I just want to make sure we are really close to being completed with Alameda.
I believe the answer to that question is yes. And part of the interest in this increase is to make sure we can keep the work moving forward to get to completion. And so with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Reed.
Thank you. So just the site work on the west side of the school where we demoed the existing building and where we are cleaning up what was left, that's all the work that's left to be done. So, and we believe that we will not be back visiting again to discuss Alameda, that we will have it done and it'll be complete this summer, and tennis courts and soccer field and courtyard.
And then when we talk about the Stride Clinic, that will be a separate conversation, correct? Outside
Yes,
of
it is.
Alameda facility.
It is totally separate.
Okay.
But obviously on the Alameda site, but it is not rolled into this project. It is its own project.
Okay, so we'll be finished with Alameda with this round. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Any other items of discussion for 5.26? Okay, roll call, please. Ms. Lang?
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes.
All right, item 5.27 is a proposal to approve an award for work at Bradford K-8 and Sebeski Academy as posted in board docs. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 5.27 as posted in board docs.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, please. So when I'm looking at it was 3 projects initially with Bradford, Sebeski, and Westwoods for a total of $3.2 million. It says that we have already had a CIP project spend or earmarked for $919,000 as of the end of December. And I was wondering when we actually did that work. Has that work already been done? Because I don't recall that we voted a contract on that one. And then just, will we have that come back to us? And will this amount be just adjusted? Because we're already drawing $3.5 million on additional premium for all of these projects that were on consent today. So I just want to know if we're looking at more money for this one as well.
There is a efficiency and future ready project at Westwoods that's scheduled for 2024 next, that would start design this fall. And so the mechanical work that was scheduled for that will be rolled into that project.
So we're earmarking the $919,000 for that project. Is that correct? We haven't spent any of that?
That's an estimate, yes.
That's an estimate, right. Okay, so that is going to be above and beyond the $3.2 million that was, or that will be in addition to the $1.6 million we're allocating for the 2 projects at Sebeski and at Bradford, correct?
Yes, so we're pulling Westwoods out, moving it into the renovation project that's scheduled to go in 2024.
Okay, so we just have to note that when we're looking at additional draw for proceeds.
Well, I think yes, I'm confused. Can you say it one more time? If I'm confused, I'm assuming maybe other people are confused, so I'm just going to say it. Can you say it one more time? What is the overall project budget? What are we removing from it, and what are we getting accomplished?
We were going to do all 3 projects as a mechanical project. As it became apparent that we did feel we had enough time, really, the engineers to do the development for Westwoods, and we were going to need to supplement the other 2 schools, which are really, when you look at where the most need is to upgrade the mechanical equipment, it was at those 2 locations. So instead of creating another mechanical standalone project in 2024, we will just take the scope of Westwoods and move it into the renovation project that is scheduled. And then a portion of those funds will go with it into.
900,000.
So it's going to be more.
Right, that's what I'm, right. So that's my question, is how we kind of account for that.
So it sounds like there's interest from the board and just in the sort of moving toward greater clarity and understanding of how, because things change. To task, I guess it would be to you, Superintendent, you're the only one we can task, to figure out systems of, for how we can sort of track these changes as they're happening.
Yep.
And impact.
And
Yes.
financial impact. And I mean, I'll just say it looks like it's going to be like another $200,000 based on your estimate that it might be over. And there's probably contingency in that project budget, and it might not be 200,000 over. So, you know, we might be able to realize some savings back into, like, you know, contingency, program contingency, depending upon how it goes. So we will work on that, but I think the clarity on that this is not funding Westwoods right now. And the board should expect Westwoods to come back for a 2024 project.
Right.
And it might be more than $900,000, which is what we're removing from this project budget. Is that a clear summary?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions about 5.27? Okay. Roll call, please, Ms. Lang.
Ms. Miller?
No.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Schooley?
Yes.
Dr. Varda?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That concludes all of our consent agenda items. We're going to move on now to finish up with, if it's okay, unless there's anyone needs a break before leadership reports. We only have two things. Okay, with leadership reports. So with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Dorland if you're ready to go.
I am. Great. Thank you so much. I want to take a moment and just acknowledge some important work that our cabinet team did a week or two ago. We had a training with the entire cabinet, as well as additional teammates who might need to be involved and likely would be involved in the case of a crisis that we might need to manage. And so we worked, and thank you to Jeff Pearson and his team in safety and security to support us in crisis response protocol so that we are prepared if and when we have to respond to something going on and making sure that our kids stay safe. So we did that training at the DeAngelis Center. It was really wonderful, and I'm very grateful for the team who trained us all. Afterwards, we were also able to visit the Jeffco Juvenile Assessment Center and understand better how we partner with our county to support students who are in crisis. And that was a really interesting and informative opportunity for many of our cabinet members as well. So thank you to the cabinet for joining me and committing that time to some really important work. I have also been spending quite a bit of time with principals. We had our executive leadership meeting this week. That's always a pleasure to be with our school leaders, and grateful for the time not only to just hear about the amazing work that's going on in their buildings, but to share about our district work and also get feedback on so many of the pieces and parts that are moving in our district. We are busy with principal hiring and staffing for any open school leadership positions. And the last thing that I'd like to share is another update about our cabinet team. Tomorrow, we will be meeting as a team all afternoon, led by Tara Pena and her team, to do some work around equity and belonging, and making sure that we are talking and receiving opportunities to really lean into what do the values around equity and belonging mean for our district and for our cabinet team as we move the work forward in a way that honors those two values set by the board. So very grateful to Tara and her team for planning for us and facilitating us tomorrow, and looking forward to spending some time tomorrow afternoon in that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Dorland. Is there a board member that would like to start us off for our board reports as we conclude our evening? Director Miller.
I would like to give a shout out again to Arvada West, who hosted Jeffcon last Friday, where Wheat Ridge, Arvada West, and Arvada communities of kiddos all came together, and it was a wonderful experience, I think, not only for the teachers that got their kids to be there, but for all of the representatives from the different companies and the different organizations that were there to talk with the kiddos about technology and opportunities and jobs and pathways and career opportunities. So I just had a great day hanging out with them. So it was really a nice break.
Great. Any other board members want to share? Dr. Parker.
In the past month, I attended the Columbine and the Dakota Ridge SAC meetings, which are always wonderful because I get to hear from all the different schools, the elementary schools, middle schools, and high school. And a lot of them presented some videos that the kids in the schools had produced. One of them was actually produced by the child, the student, they weren't just the actors in it. So that was, both of those meetings were very satisfying. Also, I met with some of the staff from Ken Carroll Middle School as a follow-up to comments that we had heard at our last meeting and their concerns over the impact of the school changes for their school next year. I also attended the Lakewood and Ken Carroll Band and Orchestra concert before they went down to, CMEA? Yeah, CMEA. It was amazing. Totally amazing how talented those kids are. I can't believe it still. And then also I attended a training. It was a Zoom training that Safer Communities 5280. That's a group of parents from Aidenbrook Academy. They had made a presentation to us, and the training was on child sexual abuse awareness and prevention. And it was very informative. I'm hoping to use some of their suggestions in our training for our staff in our district. And it's been a good month.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to share? Yep, Director Reed.
So I just came back from Parkland, Florida, and had a chance to meet with the teachers there. They are approaching the 5th anniversary of their shootings, and I know that they appreciate whatever wisdom and experience Jeffco can give them to help them weather this difficult milestone. I also had an opportunity to meet with 2 of their board members separately, and interestingly, we spent very little time on school safety and more time on the fact that they have declining enrollment and are going to need to be closing schools. And they were very intrigued with the work that we had done, and will be looking at our website and all of the wonderful things that I told them that we had. They were just so impressed with everything that I told them. And Superintendent Dorland, I would not be surprised if you end up hearing from Broward County asking them for some help with this, because we are not alone in the need to make drastic and difficult changes.
Thanks for being there with them. Director Barta, do you have
I know it's the month of conferences for teachers, and they're spending so much after school time. So I just wanted to say thank you to our teachers for putting all the extra time in and knowing our kids so well in terms of, you walk in and they're like, I know every single score for them. I know every single thing about them. So that's really helpful. I've done a few of the same things, but next week I get to do some interviews for young Ameritown positions. And so I'm pretty excited about that. So just looking forward to that.
Great. And so I'll just close out. I agree. JeffCon was wonderful. A big thanks to Ms. Ibeck and your team and all of the people that helped put that together. It was bigger, better. The keynote speaker I thought was so engaging, slightly terrifying in some of the chat GPS and other technologies that we're going to need to be discussing. However, the students seemed super engaged as well. So thank you for that. Big shout out to Drew for the logo. It's on my computer. I love that. Well done. Along with the CMEA performance, I was able to bring my youngest with me, and I think she was like, I leaned over and was like, I'm going to join a band next year. I was like, yeah, you are, because we have a trombone in our house randomly, and someone needs to play it. I also wanted to thank, I was able to go and spend a classic pancake breakfast with the Kiwanis that are in Wheat Ridge and support Everett Middle School, and they were recognizing 3 students there. One of them was mine. and so it was a really kind of, there was a nostalgia about it that was really kind of beautiful, with this sort of intergenerational way of celebrating kids and what they like to do and their achievements. And so it was really fun to be there. I think my husband's getting recruited for the Kiwanians, whatever they're. We're looking forward to Read Across America's coming up. So I do appreciate that all of the efforts that are going into that, and encourage folks to show up at school. Don't show up unannounced, but you connect with schools and be able to go and read to kids. It's such a highlight, I feel like. And then I just really appreciate the work that's been done with various school board members in thinking about and being proactive about how our district is impacted by legislation that is happening, and some of the decisions that are being made at various levels of government in our state, and how we can make sure that we're not just centering Jeffco and sort of those impacts, making sure that voice is heard, but also thinking about some of these issues and challenges that we face are across many, many districts, and they may look slightly different, but there's a lot of possibility around collective impact. And I think that is a role that I'm excited for us to lean into, not just through organizations like CASB, which we can participate in, but in following our own sort of passions around some of these education issues. So thank you to everyone for being that voice for our district. With that, I think that we are at the end of our evening together. So I will call this meeting adjourned and wish you all the very best upcoming, Valentine's Day? That's next. I thought it was January at the beginning of this meeting, so I'm just happy I know what month it is now that we're ending. All right, everyone have a wonderful and safe evening.